will be the next US president. As Trump gears up to take on Biden, his deputy Pence calls him unfit, but
Hello and welcome, and thanks for joining us. You're watching Gravitas. My name is Priyanka Sharma. Here's what's coming up tonight on the show. Can you weaponize water? If you're China, yes you can. Have you heard about China's super secret dam? If you haven't, let me tell you why you should look it up right now. It has a planned capacity of 60 gigawatts. Let that number sink in. It will be bigger, much bigger than China's own Three Gorges Dam. Let me be clear, the secret super dam will generate 3 times the power than that of the Three Gorges Dam. Another crucial concern, where is this dam? Close to China's heavily militarized frontier with India. Experts are calling this the riskiest project ever undertaken. This has consequences not just for China but all of South Asian civilizations. India and Bangladesh in particular should be concerned. What if China decides to turn off the tap? China is calling this ambitious, we call it dangerous. Tonight on Gravitas, we'll ask some questions. How is China being allowed to build this super dam in secret? How can it be allowed to weaponize water? Are there any international laws in place to curtail China's greed? We'll also have an expert on the show to answer all these questions. Also on the show, how powerful is your passport? Tonight on the show, I'll help you answer that question. The list is out, and one Southeastern nation has topped the list, and while several others have been bumped down. For Indians, there's some good news. Gun violence in America is at its peak. Mass shootings have become everyday news. Parents are afraid to send their kids to school. They're afraid they'll be killed by a shooter. Why then are Americans splurging on guns? You must have heard this news. A supermodel was caught with drugs. Hours later, she posted vacation pictures on social media. What message are we sending out to the world? Are celebrities above the law? And tonight, we'll also try and answer that ever so important question, how much should you exercise to stay fit? All coming up on the show. Our cover story tonight is about China's next mission. A mission to achieve hydro-hegemony. Turn water into a weapon, control how it flows and where it flows. A host of targets have been identified. The biggest one is India. A country China fears could soon surpass it as a regional powerhouse. So this is what China is doing. It is building a dam along India's border. A 60,000 megawatt super dam on the foothills of the Himalayas. Once completed, this dam would be the biggest in the region, also the biggest threat to India's sovereignty. How exactly? The answer lies in the dam's location. Look at this map now. The dam is being built along the Brahmaputra river on what the Chinese call the Yarlung-Tsangpo river. This river is significant for multiple reasons. Firstly, It is the world's highest altitude major river, which descends through the globe's longest and steepest canyon. Second, the river's gorge is twice as deep as the US Grand Canyon. It holds Asia's greatest untapped water reserves. And lastly, the river's fall creates one of the greatest concentrations of river energy, making it a magnet for Chinese dam builders. Which is why China wants to weaponize it. Use this river as a coercive tool to build pressure on its neighbors. How? Let me elaborate. This dam is being built at the strategic tri-junction of China's borders with India and Nepal, right opposite the Kala Pani region of Uttarakhand, which Nepal has repeatedly called contentious. So once completed, this dam could prove to be a major geopolitical headache for India, given its location. What's worse, this dam could also be used to store or block the passage of water. This can cause water shortage, particularly in Assam and Arunachal Pradesh, if China decides to turn off the tap. And upon release, it can also create floods downstream. This would affect not just India, but also countries like Bangladesh and Nepal. Now, for a moment, consider the kind of damage this could do. A free-flowing river can go dry. This, in turn, will kill the river's ecosystems, trees, plants, fish. It can drive species towards extinction, not to mention the impact it will have on the livelihoods of the people who live along these rivers. Now, that is a lot of power in the hands of one country, and China does not hesitate in wielding it. It has done so several times in the past. Take the example of the Mekong River, one of the world's longest and most important waterways. The river flows from southwestern China into Myanmar, Laos, Thailand, Cambodia and Vietnam. China has built at least 11 dams on this river. What for? To gain control. The Mekong River and its tributaries are the economic lifeline of around 60 million people in Southeast Asia. China's dams control their fate. Let's look back. What happened in 2019? The Mekong River began to dry. China blamed it on insufficient rainfall. There was a drought. The impact was severe. The result was this: Thailand's sugar output hit a 9-year low. In Vietnam, rice fields were damaged. In Laos and Cambodia, water levels hit a record low. Who caused this? Did China trigger the drought and lie to the world about low rainfall? I don't ask this question without reason. Satellite images expose how China used its dams to stop the flow of water. At the origin of the Mekong, there was an abundance of water. China was using these reservoirs to store water. Reservoirs like the Jingong Dam. For 12 months, from May 2019 to April 2020, the reservoir on this dam was full. There is another dam on the Mekong River. This is the Nuo Zadu Dam. It didn't have any water back in May 2019, but strangely, by April 2020, even its reservoir was full. Where did this water come from? The point I'm trying to make is simple. China is a repeat offender. It has made a habit of weaponizing rivers. It is able to do so because it has the support of geography. China is a starting point for rivers that flow into 18 downstream countries. No other country controls water to so many nations. So China is exploiting this advantage. It is creating an extensive dam infrastructure to arm itself. Again, there is proof to back this. A report from 2016 says that China has built as many as 87,000 dams. 87,000. Why does China need so many dams? Why else but to turn water into a weapon? The question is, how long will the world allow this? How long can we let China use water as a coercive tool? I mean, aren't there any international laws to prevent this? In 1997, the United Nations passed the Convention on Non-Navigational Uses of International Watercourses. It established 2 key principles to guide the conduct of nations regarding shared water. The first stipulates equitable and reasonable use of shared water bodies. The second obligation is not to cause significant harm to neighbors. However, the Convention states that it is up to countries themselves to spell out precisely what these terms mean in their own watersheds. Let's be frank, this is a loophole that many nations continue to exploit, especially China. A case in point is the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam on a tributary of the Nile. It's called the Blue Nile. This dam has been under construction since 2011. Egypt, which depends on the Nile for 97% of its irrigation and drinking water, fears that Ethiopia will use the dam to weaponize the river. Ethiopia calls Egypt's concerns unreasonable, and the face-off is still underway. So you see, there is both proof and precedent to oppose China's plans. It cannot be allowed to build the world's biggest dam, and that too in secret. It cannot be allowed to weaponize yet another river to harm its neighbors. We also have a piece of advice for China. How about letting go of these hegemonist acts and for once, focus on getting your own house in order? Your GDP growth has slowed down. Your property giants like Evergrande are incurring billions in losses, $81 billion to be precise. With so many troubles brewing at home, why would you want to pick up another fight with your neighbor yet again? Now, to discuss this and a lot more, I'm being joined by geostrategic expert Brahmaputra and Professor Strategic Studies at the Center for Policy Research. Professor, thank you so much for joining us on Gravitas.
Thank you for having me.
Right, now you've written about this controversial dam extensively. You've said that China is unmatched as the world's hydro-hegemon. I'm quoting your words. You also say that China cannot just keep building the world's biggest dam in secret. Tell us about why this dam poses risks for neighbors, especially India.
There are several reasons. First, the sheer size of the dam. Then, the fact that this dam is being built in a seismically active area. This makes this super dam potentially a ticking water bomb for downstream communities in India and Bangladesh, especially in northeast India. The southern part of the Tibetan Plateau, especially the southeastern corner of the Tibetan Plateau, is an earthquake-prone region because it sits on the geopolitical fault line between the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate. That's where the two plates collide. And therefore, this region is known to be a quake-prone region. In fact, there was a massive earthquake in 2008 that struck the Tibetan Plateau's eastern rim. It killed some 87,000 people. These 87,000 people were mostly killed in China's Sichuan province. And this earthquake drew international attention to the phenomenon of reservoir-triggered seismicity, which is actually a technical term that means severe tectonic stresses caused by a dam's reservoir. There was a new dam that China had built right next to the epicenter of this quake. So we have an example of where Chinese scientists have drawn a link between a major quake and a new dam. So given that background, this super dam clearly could be a risk for downstream communities.
Absolutely, Professor. You're calling this a ticking time bomb. Experts have also called this the riskiest project ever undertaken. We've spoken about international law and also the loopholes. What can India do about this? In fact, what can any stakeholder do?
Well, first, India unusually has been quiet on this super dam project. It hasn't raised its voice. It should be highlighting the risks of this super dam, the fact that this project is being taken with opacity. There is no transparency at all about this project, and yet India has been quiet. India can build cross linkages. India is downstream countries, therefore it doesn't have leverage on the river vis-a-vis the upstream China. But India has leverage on other issues, for example, trade. The fact that China's trade surplus with India has crossed more than $100 billion arms India with leverage, and therefore building cross linkages to leverage your diplomacy is the way forward to highlight the risks of this project, to draw international attention to this opaque project. This is the least that India can do.
Absolutely. You're calling this an opaque project. That is, of course, concerning. Professor Chelani, thank you so much for all your insights and thanks for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
Right. Now, here's another issue that China should focus on. The status of its missing foreign minister, Xinjiang. The world's growing more and more curious about his whereabouts. What happened to him? Where is he? Is he sick? These questions are buzzing around across global media, and not without reason. I mean, this man has been missing for 3 weeks now. He was last seen on the 25th of June when the foreign ministers of Sri Lanka, Vietnam and Russia visited Beijing. Since then, he has vanished into thin air. In the first week of July, he was supposed to go to Europe. He didn't. Last week, he was supposed to attend the ASEAN summit. He did not. He was supposed to attend the BRICS summit, and he won't be attending this one as well. Reports say that his predecessor, Wang Yi, will be filling in for Chin. These developments are bound to make one suspicious, because this is not the first time that a public figure in China has gone missing. Where exactly is this man? Is he being held hostage? If so, why? What has he done? Has he upset his masters? Just like Jack Ma did with his public speech criticizing China's banking regulation. Some say he might have. Others are citing a far more sensational reason. They're linking his disappearance to his personal shenanigans, a rumored love affair with a Cambridge-educated reporter and TV personality. Her name is Fu Xiaoqian. She is an international celebrity of sorts who built a successful media career in China as a host of a talk show on China's Phoenix TV. Some reports are saying that Qin Gang had an affair with her because Fu has also been missing for quite some time. Many say that this could be because of her alleged love affair with the foreign minister. First of all, Fu had interviewed the foreign minister last year. Many label the interview flirtatious. They say this could have led them to trouble, as it might have violated certain state protocol. Interestingly, right before she disappeared, Fu shared pictures of a jet, a screenshot of her interview with Qin, and a picture of her son. What was all this about? This is another mystery. And the last theory suggests that Qin Gang was possibly caught in a honey trap. This one implies that Fu Xiaoqian was a double agent who allegedly had links to British intelligence. The fact that she's also a US citizen is adding fire to speculation. So which of these theories is true? What really happened to Qin Gang? Did he get caught in a honey trap, or has he been jailed? The jury's out. How powerful is your passport? That was my question. Well, Singapore's passport has now become the world's most powerful. For the last few years, it had been competing with Japan for the top spot, but now Singapore has overtaken it. What should you know about this? What makes a passport stronger or weaker? Who decides that? And most importantly, how does it affect you and me? Let's break it down. The ranking is released by a London-based immigration consultancy, Henley & Partners. If you are a frequent traveller, or someone planning to move abroad, you should definitely know about it. It will help you plan things out. As I told you, Singapore tops the passport index. What it actually means is that Singapore passport holders can now travel to 192 out of 227 global destinations without visas. Just think about that once. The more countries a passport can provide visa-free access to, the more powerful it becomes. Germany, Italy and Spain have come in second with a score of 190. For the first time in 5 years, Japan has lost its #1 ranking. It slipped down to 3rd position, tying with Austria, Finland, France, Luxembourg, South Korea and Sweden. Passport holders of these countries can now travel to 189 destinations without visas. Meanwhile, the UK passport rose 2 places to claim the 4th position with a score of 188. This comes after a 6-year-long decline. The country has tied with Denmark, Ireland and the Netherlands. The United States, however, continues its downward trajectory. It has dropped 2 places to 8th rank with access to about 184 destinations. Let's talk about India. India has made steady progress over the last few years. This time around, it is at the 80th spot, showing a jump of 3 positions. So now Indians can travel to 57 destinations across the world without the hassle of visas. Not just the hassle, but also the steep cost. For instance, an Indian passport holder has to pay $136 for a 6-month visa to the United Kingdom. For the US, they have to shell out $185 to $205. That's a lot. Meanwhile, on the other side of the spectrum, Afghanistan is still at the bottom of the ranking. Its passport holders can visit just 27 destinations without a visa, and just above it sits Iraq with a score of 29 and Syria with 30. What I'm trying to say is that these are the weakest passports of the world. So this makes one wonder, why do the rankings keep changing? Why do they matter? How did Japan go from first rank to third? There was also a time when the US bagged the top position, but that was more than a decade ago. Now it languishes at the 8th rank. This mostly has to do with the country's diplomatic relations. In the past 10 years, Singapore has secured visa-free entry to 25 new global destinations. How come? By fostering food ties with other countries. The city-state has become a magnet for wealth. It also enjoyed a considerable business influx after China's crackdown on private enterprise. All this has added to its passport power. And in contrast, the United States has been experiencing a decade-long decline. In the same period, it has gained visa-free access to just 12 more destinations. Take a look. Meanwhile, experts say that by more or less standing still, the US has fallen behind. It can contribute to a decline in US soft power. You see, countries grant access to foreign individuals in exchange for investment. Strong passport holders enjoy greater travel mobility. Host countries enjoy the foreign direct investment. And a passport is more than just a travel document. A strong one like that of Singapore can give significant financial freedom, especially when it comes to international investments and business opportunities. Countries with weak passports fall behind. Their businesses face challenges. Challenges like inviting partners to meeting. Tourists encounter application delays, lots of paperwork. In a time when global connectivity has become essential for wealth creation and preservation, and as geopolitical volatility and regional instability rise, a strong passport's value will only grow. So it's a good news for all countries, including India, which saw an improvement in their passport rankings. Shifting our focus to the United States, mass killings are rising with an uptick in gun violence. The country has seen more than 377 mass shootings since the start of 2023. As policymakers struggle to curb the spree of shootings, Americans are going all out on a shopping spree for firearms. Reports say that there's a heightened interest in guns amid the crisis. So why are people splurging on guns? What makes guns desirable while thousands die in mass shootings? Our next report explores.
I grieve for those who have lost their lives. And as our nation celebrates Independence Day, we pray for the day when our communities will be free from gun violence. This is what President Biden said on the 4th of July, the American Independence Day. The 4th of July weekend was anything but a day to rejoice. The day was overshadowed by 16 mass shootings. At least 15 people were killed and nearly 100 were injured. Is this what an Independence Day looks like? The US is on track to register one of the worst years of mass shootings. The Gun Violence Archive has recorded over 350 shooting incidents this year. If the number of shootings remains constant, numbers could reach 679. This is double of what was recorded in 2018. You might be wondering what citizens are doing right now. Are people spreading awareness about gun violence? Are firearm shops closing down? Actually, no. The reality is quite different. People are going on a shopping spree for guns. Yes, citizens are buying more guns, while over 48,000 people were killed in shootings this year. But why are people buying more guns? The fear of the unknown is a motivating factor. This is what one of the buyers had to say. Reports say that people are afraid of the current gun crisis, and so they're buying firearms for protection. Self-defense is the top reason Americans buy handguns. The surge in purchases started in the pandemic. Studies show that gun permits issued rose above 40 million at that time. Nearly 7.5 million people bought their first gun between 2019 and 2021. Families keep guns easily accessible as they fear for their safety. But most mass shootings take place when a gun is easily accessible to the shooter. So, is it a good idea to keep a firearm in the house? Wouldn't this trend lead to a vicious cycle? A cycle where people buy firearms to protect themselves from others with firearms. Experts say the face of gun ownership is changing. The new gun owners seem to be younger than long-standing gun owners. Critics say the government hasn't communicated the risk of firearms properly. Easy access to firearms does not make the home safer. Firearms raise chances of suicide and homicide. Experts say that an owner is more likely to be a victim than successfully protect oneself. Researchers say that an armed person starts to perceive others as armed. They respond to others as if they are threatened. This concept is also known as gun embodiment. Having a gun can change the way you act. Is owning a gun then the only way out? Will guns rule over the minds of every American?
Let's talk about climate change. It's one of those things which is often discussed but seldom acted upon. And now this climate negligence is taking a toll on our lives. Italy, once a popular destination to escape the heat, is now recording desert-like temperatures. Let me be frank, climate action is now overdue on our part. Our next report shows you why.
Mercury is rising around the world. Records are being shattered. Unrelenting high temperatures and wildfires, millions across the world are affected. Record-breaking temperatures have already been felt in Asia, North and Central America, Africa and West Asia. Now, Europe is facing the danger caused by unrelenting high temperatures and wildfires. This is what remains of the hills which were once lush green. These images are from northwest of Athens. Greece is now facing a new wave of heat after days of scorching temperatures.
We saved what we could. We took what we could. Our animals and nothing else. What else can we take? At this moment, we can't do anything.
Visitors at Rome's historic sites queue at water distribution points as Italy prepares for the peak of the heat waves that are gripping southern Europe. Some Italians are heading to a beach near Rome to escape the hottest day of the year, where the temperature could breach the previous record of 40.5 degrees Celsius set in August 2007.
We'd seen that the weather forecast was 43 degrees. So instead of visiting the interior of Rome, we thought we'd get some fresh air and enjoy the sea.
Beijing broke its record for the longest stretch of high-temperature days in a year. The temperatures in the Chinese capital soared above 35 degrees Celsius for 27 consecutive days.
At noon, it feels like the sun is roasting my legs. It feels like my skin is burning. It wasn't this hot before. It feels like the government still needs to put efforts into publicity, at least to create more awareness about climate change.
The sweltering heat is showing no mercy to Americans either. Tens of millions of Americans are experiencing dangerous heat levels this week. The city of Phoenix breaks a 49-year-old record with its 19th consecutive day of temperatures of 43.3 degrees Celsius. With July and August the most critical months for heat waves, the United Nations is warning countries around the world to expect a severe impact on human health.
So repeated high nighttime temperatures are particularly dangerous for human health because the body is unable to recover from sustained heat. This leads to increased cases of heart attacks and death. And it's not the only diseases that we see, but they're the notable ones. While most of the attention focuses on daytime maximum temperatures, it is the overnight temperature which will have the biggest health risk.
Scientists say there is a chance 2023 will go down as being the hottest year since records began in the mid-19th century. The worry is that with global emissions showing no signs of ebbing and erratic weather is now becoming the new normal, world leaders are not showing the urgency to tackle the clear and present danger. It's high time that climate crisis is given the priority it needs and immediate action is taken to tackle the worsening situation. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Let's move on now. For the first time in decades, reports say that a US soldier has been detained by North Korea. The soldier crossed a heavily fortified border from South Korea without permission. The US military says that he willfully crossed into North Korea. This comes as Pyongyang ramps up its ballistic missile tests. So why did the soldier cross into the most isolated nation? Will this cause a diplomatic headache for the United States? Let's get into the details now. The man in question is Private Second Class Travis King. Although there's no word from North Korea as of now, reports say that King defected and is in custody of North Korea. The US says that they haven't been able to contact the soldier. So what do we know till now? The US military says that King made a run across the border without authorization. Seoul officials say he passed through airport security and immediately got on a civilian tour of the border. The soldier soon went out of tracking contact after he crossed the border.
The afternoon of July 18th, local time, a U.S. soldier on a private JSA orientation tour crossed willfully and without authorization the military demarcation line into the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. And we believe the soldier is currently in DPRK custody and are working with our North Korean counterparts to resolve this incident.
So who is Private Travis King? The Pentagon says that King is a cavalry scout who joined the military in 2021. The 23-year-old was part of the Army's 1st Armored Division and also served with the US military in South Korea. But he wasn't the ideal US soldier. Seoul officials say that he faced disciplinary action for assault and spent 2 months in jail. Reports say he was fined for repeatedly kicking the back door of a police vehicle. He also shouted foul language at the officers who apprehended him. Where the US soldier is now is much worse than 2 months in jail. King is in the hands of a nation that regards the United States as its mortal enemy. But how could North Korea benefit from detaining King? Let us remind you, King is not a high military ranking officer. He wouldn't have access to top classified information. But experts say that King may spill out information like base layouts or the number of US troops in specific areas. The 23-year-old could be a potentially powerful bargaining chip. Let's tell you what North Korea can do to a US soldier. In 1965, US soldier Charles Jenkins crossed over to North Korea. He claimed to have regretted the move. Listen in.
Defected US soldiers can't walk around Pyongyang, nor go to stores on their own. They could only move through vehicles provided by North Korea, under surveillance, so they spent their whole lives with their freedom suppressed in a very closed area until they died.
So what happened while in detention? He was forced to appear in propaganda films. The soldier taught North Korean spies how to read and speak English. Jenkins was forced to study the writings of North Korean leaders 8 hours a day. After a deal was struck between Pyongyang and Tokyo in 2004, he was allowed to leave North Korea. US-North Korea relations plummeted further when a student was detained in 2017. North Korea sentenced him to 15 years of hard labor. Why? It's because he stole a propaganda sign from a hotel. Hours after King's detention, North Korea launched 2 suspected ballistic missiles into the nearby sea. This shouldn't come as a surprise. Since 2019, Kim Jong-un has tested dozens of missiles to raise tensions. We are talking about missiles capable of carrying nuclear warheads. Will the US soldier be detained for several years like others? Will the US strike a deal with North Korea? We will keep watch as this story unfolds. Supermodel Gigi Hadid was arrested in the Cayman Islands a few days ago. Why? For carrying drugs, that too in her luggage. Yes, she carried marijuana to her vacation. In her defense, they say it was medically prescribed. But why does that matter if carrying marijuana in and out of Cayman Islands remains illegal? The supermodel was let go with a minor fine. She went on to enjoy her holiday as if nothing had happened. So what message does this send out to the world? Are celebrities above the law? What about the private jet that Hadid carried her marijuana on? Where is the climate change awareness now? More details in our next report.
On July 10th, Gigi Hadid arrived in the Cayman Islands via her private jet, of course. In her luggage, the supermodel was carrying marijuana. Marijuana which her representative says Hadid had bought legally in New York soon after getting her luggage checked. Hadid and her friend Leah McCarthy were taken to a detention center. The duo was soon released on bail. 2 days later, they were asked to appear in court, where Hadid and McCarthy pleaded guilty. They paid a fine of some $1,200 and went on to enjoy their vacation. Later, Gigi Hadid posted sun-soaked pictures on her Instagram account. She appeared to be having a good time. She captioned her post, "All's well that ends well." Netizens in the comment section were amused by Hadid's nonchalant approach. One said, "Weren't you arrested?" Another said, "She couldn't care less." Some even came to Hadid's rescue, claiming she had a medical license for marijuana and that the Cayman Islands allows its medicinal use since 2017. What's astonishing is how the whole incident has been downplayed. This is possession of drugs we are talking about. But within a matter of 2 days or so, Gigi Hadid was detained, bailed out, fined, only to enjoy a clear legal record and a luxurious vacation at the end. The model seemed unbothered as she laid on the beach smiling, and blue waves came rolling onto the shore. She had the celebrity card. She was bound to enjoy the perks. You see, the jet set doesn't believe in laws, be it about drug use or climate change. Even if Gigi Hadid carried prescribed marijuana, which is legal in the United States, wasn't she aware of the laws in the Cayman Islands? The answer was just a Google search away. Even though medicinal use of marijuana is allowed, traveling in and out of the Cayman Islands with cannabis remains illegal. Did Gigi Hadid think she was above the law? Or was she simply unbothered? And as we speak of not caring, what about the private jet she was carrying this marijuana on? When it comes to climate change, these celebrities are usually the first to open their mouths and demand change. They think they are raising awareness. What they don't realize is they are just exposing their hypocrisy. You and I can recycle all we want. We can avoid use of plastic bags, switch to bamboo toothbrushes or more sustainable clothes. Just how many times have you been called out for buying fast fashion? We can change our ways all we want. But it would hardly make a difference, because these rich celebs roam around the world in private jets with marijuana or without, shamelessly releasing greenhouse gases. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Since we're talking about climate change, I have a question. How scared would you be if I told you your city is sinking? Scientists in the United States of America have issued a dire warning. They say that downtown Chicago is sinking due to something known as subsurface heat islands, basically underground climate change. Don't believe me? Take a look.
Climate change is undoing a lot of things. It's causing upheavals. Temperature records are being broken. Ocean temperatures are rising. The world's coldest place, Antarctica, is unusually hot. But there's something even more strange happening. The ground is slipping from below our feet, literally. And it's happening for real in the third most populous city in the United States. We're talking about Chicago, the city where the first skyscraper was constructed. A little more than 2.5 million people live in the city. Nearly 40 million people visit Chicago every year. But now the city is facing a threat which could soon become existential. Scientists are calling this phenomenon underground climate change. This basically leads to a shifting of land under cities. A study published in Nature magazine says that soil, rock and construction material deform under the influence of temperature variations, and excessive deformation can affect the performance of civil infrastructure. Since the mid-20th century, the ground between the city surface and the bedrock has warmed by 5.6 degrees on average. Researchers explain that underground climate change is the warming of the ground below. This is caused by heat released by buildings and subway systems. The denser the city, the more intense is the effect. Soil, rock and construction material deform when subjected to temperature variations. The study has focused on Chicago, but the US city is not alone. In big cities worldwide, the rising mercury is slowly shifting the ground from beneath us. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Before I end the show, let me ask you, how often do you exercise? Are you one of those who works out daily, heads to the gym, goes for a run, tracks each and every step? Well, a new study may convince you that you're wasting your time because you may be able to get the same results by just being a weekend warrior. So who is a weekend warrior? Typically someone who takes it easy throughout a grueling week, doesn't stress about working out or tracking each step, but on weekends, they try and be healthy. These weekend warriors get a jolt of energy only on weekends and cram a week's worth of exercise in just 2 days. This could be strength training, HIIT, running, some light cardio. It's almost as if they're making up for the debauchery of the week by being good for just 2 days. While those of us who try and stay consistent throughout the week may be judging them right now, it seems these weekend warriors are having the last laugh. New research says that those who cram an entire week's recommended exercise into a couple of days also have a similarly lower risk of heart disease as compared to those who work out through the week, stay consistent. What the study is essentially saying is that whether you exercise 7 days a week or just on weekends, you would be reaping the same benefits. The study has been published in the JAMA network. It suggests that the total volume of activity, matters more rather than the pattern. So as long as you hit your weekly goal, it doesn't matter whether you achieve it across 7 days or within 2 days. The study analyzed medical records for nearly 90,000 people. All were made to wear wrist-mounted accelerometers. These recorded their physical activity for a week. 2 groups were identified, those who spread their activity out across a week and those who cram it across 2 days. And both groups reported decent cardiovascular health. Sounds great, right? Why work out daily when you can just catch up with workouts only on the weekend and dance your way to good heart health? Here's a reality check. It's not that easy. Public health guidelines recommend that adults should perform at least 150 minutes of moderate to intense activity every week. Now, this could be walking, jogging, some light strength training, or they can do 75 minutes of vigorous activity. Now, this could be a high-intensity workout, longer runs, cardio, or powerlifting even. So what happens when you miss your weekly workouts? Are you ready to cram 150 minutes just into 2 days? That's at least 75 minutes of daily workouts. You'll have to set aside at least 2 to 3 hours to work out on your weekend. You may think it's doable. Maybe it is. But when the weekend chores come calling, when impromptu road trips beckon, when your best friend drops by for a surprise coffee or your child has that play date, trust me, that workout is long forgotten. Exercise is medicine, they say. But for some, it's a task. Many don't want another to-do on the weekend. Human nature often tends towards procrastination. Imagine if you missed 2 workouts on your only weekend. You would have missed the entire week. Look, I'm not saying you can't do it. If you're someone who enjoys working out on weekends alone, at leisure, please do. But if you have a stressful week and you want to leave all your exercise only for your weekends, you're not going to be very productive. This study may have told us a thing or two about our bodies, but it's not going to change our habits. Daily movement is good for the mind, heart, body and soul. A walk in the park, a light swim, a dance class if you will. Prioritize movement for good mental health. Don't let a study tell you when to work out. Because you know what they say. What's the best time to exercise? Whenever you exercise. And with that, it's a wrap on Gravitas tonight, leaving you with Gravitas images. Thanks for watching.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at WION.com.
Hi, I'm Alison Lagrange and you're watching E-Club. Here are the nominees for Achievement in Music.
People are totally wrong who keep telling me that, oh, you're a multitasker. I'm not.
Awards and fashion shows are in full swing.
Seeing a young, black man, directing a feature film, I saw myself in him.
Engage with us. Let us know what you'd like to see on the show and celebrities that you'd like us to feature.
Who will be the next US president? As Trump gears up to take on Biden, his deputy Pence calls him unfit. But it's DeSantis who is drumming up support. A dozen Republicans in the fray and counting. Will a crowded contest benefit Trump? Race for the White House on WION. The world is one.
You don't know how to fix the holes in our ozone layer. You don't know how to bring the salmon back up a dead stream. You don't know how to bring back an animal now extinct. And you can't bring back the forest that once grew where there